Welcome, everybody. This is the December 2021 edition of Farsight's Intelligence Briefing. And today's intelligence briefing is really important, and you have to understand it. It's really important for your freedom if you are to understand this. Now, this title for this topic is called Coerced Consent and the False Flag. It affects everybody. Now, I'm going to be talking about some of the major events that are going to be involved with this idea of coerced consent. However, it affects everybody on every level, and I'm going to be touching all of those. Now, let me explain that this is a free will universe. Free will does exist. It actually happens. You have the free will. However, there's two elements that interact together, and the free will that you have interacts with the idea of vibration that we call vibration. Now, there's a difference between free will and vibration. Let me explain that. Vibration is determined by what you think and how you feel. Now, physicists have long understood that nothing really happens on the quantum level unless it's registered or observed in some way. Now, it doesn't have to mean that the moon will, as Einstein said, does this mean the moon would not exist if nobody observed it? But in a sense, that does mean that. You see, on the quantum level, individual particles don't actually register in our reality unless something actually happens to interact with them. And we are all composed of individual particles. So the big macro must be dependent upon the micro. So what we have is an understanding that somehow, in some way, shape, or form, observation or interaction, registering in some way, it can be through a machine or it can be through personal observation or whatever, somehow has an effect on whether things manifest in our reality. So the idea of free will and vibration interact because the vibration is the frequencies that compose the macro reality that we have, what we are looking at, us right now. We all have what the physicists would call a wave function. So a particle has a wave function, a molecule has a wave function, a house has a wave function, you and I have wave functions, a planet has a wave function, and in fact the universe has a wave function. So there is such a thing as a group of frequencies that combine and interact in such a way that they create something that physicists call a superposition. And that's when the particles manifest in our reality the way we see it. So now they've done lots of experiments along this line, so this is not in dispute. The interpretation of quantum mechanics is in dispute, but the reality is that quantum mechanics and the macro world are linked in some way that many modern day physicists do not fully understand. And they often say, some physicists, it's usually the older generation physicists, they say that what happens in the quantum realm is like what happens in Vegas. It stays in Vegas. And what happens in the macro realm stays in the macro. And there's a line between them. But that's so stupid. The younger physicists don't often think that. The younger physicists understand that what happens in the micro realm must be what happens in the macro realm. And we're basically waiting for generational replacement to allow these newer ideas to sort of sift through. But it means something to you. It means something really important to you, because it means that your vibration, your observation, your way of thinking, your way of feeling actually makes a difference in what you experience, in what manifests in the reality that you're living in. So free will is one thing, vibration is another. But you see, by vibrating in a certain way, by having a certain tenor to your feelings and your thoughts, what happens is that you become compatible with, vibrationally, everything else that vibrates in a similar way. So you cannot actually interact with someone if the vibration for that other person is very different from you. It's like oil and water. It just doesn't mix. These are very difficult ideas for physicists to work their heads around, but it nonetheless actually works on a mathematical level and on the physics level. What we have is that things have to be in a state of superposition. That means the frequencies have to be somewhat comparable in order for them to interact in some way. Let me give you an example, and then I will show you why this matters for your future. Let's just say you pick the middle key in a piano, and you hit the C. and then you hit the C sharp, or maybe just the B right below it, okay? And what you hear is something called a beat frequency between the two frequencies. So you hit the C and the C sharp at the same time. And what you hear is a wah, 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 wah as the two frequencies interact. You see the two frequencies, the C and the C sharp, are interacting and producing what's called a beat frequency. But now if you take the middle C and you hit the highest C sharp or the B on the piano keyboard, you hardly hear any beat, any interaction. There is actually one, but it's hardly one to notice. It just basically is insignificant. There's no real interaction between middle C and the highest B. The frequencies are just too far apart. So frequencies have to be somewhat in the same neighborhood for the interactions to actually occur. So that is why, from the level of physics, that if you have a predator and a prey, on some level they have to interact. That means that the emotions and thoughts, the feelings of the predator and the prey somehow are compatible. That is why fear is compatible with anger. The vibration of both are somewhat comparable. So free will, in one sense, is dependent upon the vibration, what you're allowing yourself to interact with. This somehow connects also with the so-called law of attraction. But the basic idea is that free will and vibration go hand in hand. All right? You can't think of one without the other. So if one is in a certain vibration, you're exposing yourself to everything in that vibration. That's what we are involved with right now on the planet Earth. So if you can interact because of a certain level of vibration, anything that happens at that certain level of vibration, you're essentially susceptible to that. Now the real question is, what is free will in that context of you being susceptible to anything that happens? So if something really bad is going on in the world, by your own vibration, are you compatible with that? Now, we're going to extend this to the extraterrestrial realm. So let us say we've been talking a lot on Farsight about the Galactic Federation of Worlds. So let us say that the Galactic Federation of Worlds says they're going to intervene in some way. Now, if they're going to intervene in some way, what is the decision for if they're going to intervene or not? What is the decision if they're going to say, this is worth an intervention, that's not? First of all, they have to say, we're dealing with something where everybody in that thing is of the same vibration. So automatically you're saying everybody that's experiencing that is in the same ocean. They're in the same pool. So in one sense, by vibration, they're sort of choosing to be in that setting. For example, if I go to the beach and I jump into the water and I see a shark, am I supposed to get upset with the shark? Heck, I know that in the water there are sharks. So am I, should someone be saving me for going swimming at the beach when in fact I knew I was going someplace where there are sharks? So if you're talking about something that the Galactic Federation of the Worlds has to intervene with, they have to come up with a decision about saying, is it something that's worthwhile for them to interact? Now, you can't really say the following. Now, if those people knew what was really happening, then they would want our help. So we should intervene. We should invade. You can't say that because there are so many things that people do and get done to themselves that are not really things that they really want to happen, but those things happen within the context of that particular vibration. Now, I'm going to be connecting this to all sorts of things, including the whole debate on the vaccines, the whole debate on wars, the whole debate on the reptilians, the whole debate on what's going to be happening with the so-called false flag. And let me tell you, there is going to be a false flag that you're going to need to understand. I'm going to be connecting it to what happened with 9/11. I'm going to be connecting it to the history with what happened to Germany and the Franco-German War. I'm going to be comparing it to and connecting it to Operation High Jump. I'm going to be comparing it to the situation with reptilians right here on this planet right now, and I'm going to show you the ways in which free will can be twisted and turned such that people actually give their consent, their free will consent, to be enslaved, to be captured, to be trapped. I'm going to go through all of that, and I'm going to do it starting right now. So let's get into the details.